Good day, everyone, everywhere, and special greetings to all those seated in heavenly places in Yeshua, our Messiah. The name of this broadcast is Cross the Border, and I'm Nicholas, and we're going through the scriptures here most of the times, day by day. We go through the Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse, and we'll continue in that today. Last time we left off in Samuel, that is 1 Samuel, chapter 8, and we got a few verses in, but I'm going to back up to the beginning and read in chapter 8, verse 1, where it says, "And it came to pass when Samuel was old, that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba. His sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes and perverted judgment." And as I was sitting here meditating and reading the text before the broadcast, I took a look at what our good friend Henry had to say in his commentary, and I thought I would share that with you because, I just thought it was well worth sharing. Our good friend Matthew Henry says, "Two sad things we find here, but not strange things. One, a good and useful man growing old and unfit for service. Samuel was old, and could not judge Israel as he had done. He is not reckoned to be past 60 years of age now, perhaps not so much, but he was a man betimes, was full of thoughts and cared when he was a child, which perhaps hasten the infirmities of age upon him. The fruits that are the first ripe keep the worst. He had spent his strength and spirits in the fatigue of public business. And now, if he think to shake himself as at other times, he finds he is mistaken. Old age has cut his hair. Those that are in the prime of their time ought to be busy doing the work of life, for as they go into years they will find themselves less disposed to it and less able for it. The children of a good man turning aside and not treading in his steps. Samuel had given his sons a good education, and had given them such good hopes of their doing well, and gained such reputation in Israel, that he made them judges, assistants to him a while, and afterwards deputies under him at Beersheba, which lay remote from Ramah, probably the southern countries, petitioned for their residence there, that they might not be necessitated to travel far with their causes. And what we see here in this explanation, and I'll continue in a minute after I comment here, is we see the system of judges and the government that God gave Israel. God gave Israel a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And yes, that was proclaimed, I believe, by Wycliffe. And part of that phrase, part of his quote was borrowed by Abraham Lincoln. So a lot of people believe that Abraham Lincoln originated that, but no, it came hundreds of years before Abraham Lincoln. He merely borrowed that phrase, and it gave a lot of power to his speech, so much so that people were mesmerized and missed the true meaning of the double speak of that speech, but we won't go into that now. I talked about that the other day. But read it for yourself and look for double speak. You will find it. If you're not looking for it, if you just want to be mesmerized and worship at the altar of the apotheosis of a man, well, then join the crowds. But continuing here, we see the nation, the type of government that God gave the people in action here, a nation of judges. And the judges were to judge. And of course, like in Beersheba where he sent his sons, 10 families were supposed to judge among themselves, among 10 families and then among 50 families. And then from there it would go up to the highest judge in the land, which when the government was given was Abraham. At this time, it was Samuel. Now, we'll continue here with Henry. with that comment. We have reason to think that Samuel gave them their commission, not because they were his sons. He had no ambition to entail the government upon his family, any more than Gideon had, but because for aught that yet appeared, they were men very fit for the trust, and none so proper to ease the aged judge, and take some of the burden off of him, as his own sons, who no doubt were respected for their good father's sake, and having such an advantage at setting out might soon have been great, if they had been good. But alas, his sons walked not in his ways. And when their character was the reverse of his, their relation to so good a man, which otherwise would have been their honor, was really their disgrace. Degenera, whatever, it got something in Greek here, but it means a good extraction is a reproach to him that degenerates from it. Note that those that have the most grace themselves cannot give grace to their children. It has often been the grief of good men to see their posterity, instead of treading in their steps, trampling upon them, and, as Job speaks, marrying their path. Nay, many that have begun well, promised fair, and set out in the right path, so that their parents and friends have had great hopes of them, yet afterwards have turned aside to bypass, and been the grief of those of whom they should have been the joy. When Samuel's sons were made judges, and settled at a distance from him, then they discovered themselves. Thus, many that have been well educated, and have conducted themselves well while they were under their parents' eye, when they have gone abroad into the world, and set up for themselves, have proved bad. Let none therefore be secure either of themselves or theirs, but depend upon divine grace. Many that have done well in a state of meanness and subjection have been spoiled by preferment and power. Honors change men's mind, and too often for the worse. It does not appear that Samuel's sons were so profane and vicious as Eli's sons, but whatever they were in their respects, they were corrupt judges. They turned aside after lucre and after the mammon of unrighteousness, so the Chaldee reads it. Note, the love of money is the root of all evil. It is pernicious in any, but especially in judges. Samuel had taken no bribes, but his sons had, though no doubt he warned them against it when he made them judges. And then they perverted judgment. In determining controversies, they had an eye to the bribe, not to the law, and inquired who bid highest, not who had right on his side. It is sad with a people when the public justice that should do them right, being perverted, does them greatest wrong. And I thought that I'd read that from our good friend Matthew Henry, an insight into perverted judges, which we see as endemic throughout the land where I live today. Justice is perverted at every turn, and men prefer, perhaps not for money, but for many other things, or things that they will benefit by, if not a direct reward of a bribe. There are other ways to bribe than directly greasing someone's palms, so to speak. And so we see justice perverted throughout the land where we live. Let us continue here in 1 Samuel chapter 8 and verse 4. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah. And here we have a turn for the worse. And another point that we need to understand here is that, yes, Samuel's sons perverted justice. They were taken in by the bribe. They preferred those that enriched them. And, they did not have to take a direct bribe. Just as they didn't have a bidding call there to see who was going to bid the highest for the judge's answer. Things are not done that blatantly. There's always a modicum of respect that is visible when behind the scenes there may be secret deals or innuendo going on. You know that someone's not going to hand you $50,000 when you're making the judgment or to get you to pervert justice your way, although that does happen, and that's unlawful, and people get busted for those kind of things, and judges, and go to prison for that. No, but there are other ways to pervert justice. A wink, a knowing wink, many ways, knowing that you're going to benefit by the friendship that you have or you're going to make. And there are a lot of friendships behind the scenes when you go into the courtroom. Most of these judges and lawyers know each other. The one, if a lawyer has if a judge has two lawyers in his courtroom and he loves the one but has no regard for the other or even an animosity toward the other, it doesn't matter what the case is. Justice will be perverted. And that's what you have going on. And that's why it's really a shame that for people to have a lawyer or an officer of the court. When you go into court, the guy that's representing you, if you're going up against the state, the guy that's representing you is an officer of the court, and his first duty is to the court. And the judge who sits on the bench is going to make the decision, or at least tell the jury what to do by his instruction. He is paid by your adversary, the state. And of course, then there's the prosecuting attorney, who is also paid for by the state. And then if you have a jury, and you peruse the jury, you'll find that most of the jurors work for the state. They may be postmen, they may be teachers or government workers, but more than half of them will work for the state. Or many of them have their living by benefits from the state. Some may even be on welfare or pension plans or collecting Social Security. So there's no way if you're a defendant in a courtroom today you're going to win. You lose no matter what. Even if you win your case, you still lose because you've had all the expense and the disruption of your life. Defendants never win. And so that's the state of justice. And let's see, what else do we have? I had another thought, and I guess I'm going to have to wait for it to drift back into my mind here. So all the elders, they gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah. And yes, the other side of that thought is you have a people willing to pervert justice, to do favors, and to give bribes. It wasn't just Samuel's sons that were responsible for what came upon Israel. It was the people of Israel willing to pervert these young men and to turn them aside from a good path. And hopefully they could have repented in their life. We've all done wrong. We've all perverted justice in some manner in our lives, it would seem, or at least I would think that we're all guilty of something. None of us are all, and who's to say how many of us could stand up, and how long would it take for us to pervert justice? What is the price that we would fall at? And would to God that none of us would be put to such a trial to find that place in us, if that place be. There's a quote, it says that every man has his price. And someone told that to me once. Or no, I think, yes, I was writing on another case. And every man has his price. And I said every man that can be bought has his price, because not all men can be bought. There are many good men out there, many men who have the Spirit of God upon them. Those are the ones who can't be bought. If the Spirit of God is not on you, well, then it's just a matter of what your price is. We'll continue now in Samuel here, and coming to a often quoted and very famous text in Israel, because we're coming upon the text that the point in national Israel where they threw off the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Both the people by perverting justice, offering bribes and favors, by whatever innuendo or wink of the eye, they were perverting justice. And then the judges, of course, falling for that, finding their price, even be the sons of a very prominent and righteous man, the man Samuel. So they came, and they said to Samuel, and here what they're doing is they're blame shifting. They're shifting the blame off of themselves. They say, here's a fault we found, and therefore this is what we want. And they're trying to shift the blame to Samuel himself, or his sons, to Samuel because of his sons. And the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. In verse 6, But the thing displeased Samuel. And when they said, Give us a king to judge us, and Samuel prayed unto Yahuwah. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. So, and God is not a man that he could lie. And that's what he was telling them was the truth. What he was telling Samuel was the truth, that the nation had rejected him. Finally, once and for all, and forever in Israel, God had been rejected as the king of Israel. So he tells Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say, according to the works which they have done, verse 8, since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day wherewith they have forsaken me, and served other gods, so do they also unto thee. Now therefore hearken unto their voice, howbeit yet protest solemnly unto them, and show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. And Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king. And he said, This will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. This is a manner of government without God. So we need to take a special note here. Note these characteristics of a government without God. If you will not have God as your king, if you will not have your Creator as your king, here is what you are going to have. And this is what we have all around us. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen. And some shall run before his chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands, and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground, and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war, and instruments of his chariots. Now what had Israel up to this point? He said, you don't want me? Then you're going to have a king. You're going to have a government that's going to take your sons and daughters and make them servants. And they're going to have a standing army, captains of 10s, 50s, and thousands. So you're going to have a standing army. You're going to make instruments of war. He's going to take whatever he wants because, well, he is the king after all. He says he'll take your daughters to be his confectionaries, and to be cooks, and to be bakers. And he will take your fields, and your vineyards, and your olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. Yeah, eminent domain, God giveth, but the king taketh away, huh? So we should be real surprised when all of this is happening all around us today, under what guise, whatever guise it is happening. He will take 1/10 of your seed, and which reminds me, in the state government that enforces its will on the people where I live today, well, they raised the sales tax up to 10%. Yes. So whatever the price, you know that if you live here and buy it here, it's going to cost you 10% more. So internet, that's just pushing all the business to internet and out of state, where you can get 10% off on everything instantly. So this makes a lot of sense. These governments haven't figured that out yet. He will take the 10th from your seed and of your vineyards, and give it to his officers and to his servants. Say, you don't want to pay me? You don't want to tithe me? Well, you're going to tithe the government. But it's much worse than that today, isn't it? See, the taking the tenth by the government here was to be a bad thing. That was like a curse. They're probably going, oh, only a tenth? I mean, if the people today could get away with only paying a tenth, but they're just paying a tenth on the sales tax, while the government is taking, up to 60%, 80% of everything in every way they can. We'll move on here in verse 15. And he will take the tenth of your seed and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and his servants. So the tenth was just to go to all the people that he's going to take from you and employ for him, because he has to pay them somehow. They don't produce nothing. He needs your production to provide for them. And he will take your men servants and your maid servants and your goodliest young men and your asses, and put them to his work. And he will take the tenth of your sheep, and you shall be his servants. What a big surprise. Do you feel like a servant of the government? Yes, if 80%, if they leave you less than 50% of what you make to live on, that's called your allowance, because you are the servant of the government. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Cross the Border. We left off at 1 Samuel chapter 8 and verse 17. He, and that is the king that the people wanted, instead of having their creator, the God of Israel, Yahuwah, by name, to be king over them, putting off the government that he gave them, of the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And he tells them, well, this is what you're going to get if you want a king like the other nations. And so whenever a nation puts off God, this is what they get. And he will take a tenth of your sheep, and ye shall be his servants. Anybody feel like a slave out there? And you are his, or you are the government. You belong to that ungodly government. Why, they've even given you your identity. That's right. Got the silly guy who I've seen him on the TV and the commercials, and he dares anyone to steal his identity. So he puts his government identification number on a truck and drives it around New York City, and and dares anyone to steal his identity because he's selling identity protection services. And I think, how sad that this man finds his identity in a number given him by the government. Now, see, I have my identity in Christ. I live and breathe and have my being in Christ Jesus. I'm sitting in heavenly places. That's my identity. And nobody can steal that from me. They can have anything else. If the government has thought in the past to give me a number, and even if I fell for it and used it, I've repented of all that. I have nothing to do with that. Nobody can steal my identity now, because my identity comes from the Creator, and I'm not giving that up. I'm not their slave, and I've given up all the things that attach me to them. And if they try to attach that to me, well, I just have to proclaim that I have repented of those things, that I am a new man, I am a new creature. All things became new, and they cannot force me. I'm supposed to have religious liberty in the land where I live, and I will stand on that religious liberty. And my religious liberty says that I do not have to accept any mark of any beast. Beast equaling government. Government issued number or identifier. That's what a mark is. It's something that identifies something. It identifies someone's property. You shall be his servants. This is all a curse. Oh, you want a king like the other nations? You're going to reject me? God says, saith the Lord. You're going to reject me from being king over you? Okay, well, you shall be his servants. This king you want, you shall be his servants. Any nation that rejects the God that created them, that created mankind, then you're going to be the servants of whatever you want to take his place, whatever government, kingdom, authority, structure, image, whatever it is. You shall be servants of it. He continues, and you shall cry out in that day because of your king. Oh, wow, people are crying out today. And, it's a foolish cry. They're having tea parties. Oh, tea parties. And I went to one of these tea parties. And, it's nice that people are getting excited, but they were getting entertained at the same time. Because went to this tea party. They would not allow anyone to speak that had any substance. It was like, I hate to tell you how I characterized the tea party that I saw. There were a few good things going on there behind the scenes, but certain people were taken off the roster and not allowed to speak because their speech would not have been politically correct. See, because the slaves that are now, as the scripture here puts it, okay, you shall cry out in that day. Yes, they're crying out in this day, just like, just what he described, what would happen. People are doing it today. But the problem is they can't leave the slave mentality. How many of those are willing to walk away from their socialist security number? But they're crying out, oh, the government's spending too much money. It's taking too much from us. But let me collect my socialist security. I don't want to give that up when I get old. I want free drugs, by the way. But don't tell me where I have to go to the doctor. They want to walk the fence. They want to cry about it. And that's all they want to do. Just want to cry about it. Wah, wah, wah. You know what? As long as you're taking the benefits, as long as you're signed up for them, as long as you're unwilling to walk away from them, then you have nothing to cry about. That's what I have to say. Because that was the mentality of most of those people. Most of those people, that's their mentality. They want to cry about it. They all want to get together and have their mutual pity party. I'm being nice there by just calling it a pity party. And then they all go home and do nothing. And none of them are willing to give up anything or provide for themselves or take care of their own parents or go out and, take care of their health themselves by eating right. And then every time something goes wrong, they go wah, wah, cry to the government. Why wasn't George Bush there to help us? Why didn't he know that we had a flood or whatever, like the people did when they had that Katrina thing? You shall cry out in that day because of your kings, which you shall have chosen you. And the Lord will not hear you in that day. You know why he will not hear you? Because there's no repentance. You just want to blame someone for what you brought upon yourself and what you're unwilling to put off of yourself. Nevertheless, the people refused. Samuel tells them all these things are going to happen. He warns them of everything that we see happening in Tennessee. It's not that far from us, is it? We understand totally what Samuel is saying. So totally because it's all around us today. In Samuel, we have it recorded here. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel. Samuel saying, don't do this, because all of these terrible things are going to happen. And they said, nay, but we will have a king over us. And that's what the people say, nay. They don't want the alternative. They don't want to take responsibility for their own lives and their own families and live under God's government, the government, self-government, family government that he set up, and the system of judges that he set up. No, they want someone to administer it all for them. Be he a king, a dictator, a president, whatever, a savior. They want a savior like the other nations. They want a God that they can worship, a God that they can touch, a God more like them. So the people said, nay, but we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations. We don't want to be this chosen people of God. We don't want to be God's nation, Yahudi, called by the name of God. My people are called by my name. Oh, no, we can't have that. We want to be like the other nations, that we might, just if we could only be like the other nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. Where did they think the king was going to get the stuff to fight their battles? Out of thin air? No, Samuel just told them. He's going to take your sons and your daughters and you. He's going to take everything he needs from you. He's going to take all your stuff. So instead of you getting your militia together and going out and fighting your battles, every man being armed and ready for the enemy, oh yes, he'll set up a standing army for you. And then you got to pay this army all the time. The army is not you anymore. It's this standing army that you're going to pay for. It's going to be your sons and daughters. And they said, what did they say? That he will fight our battles? To go before us and fight our battles? They're thinking of this man as like a god, like this one man is going to go out there and do it all for them. And Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he rehearsed them in the ears of Yahuwah. I see Samuel just going back and falling on his face and just lamenting all the words that the people told him. After all the warnings, them not understanding that no king is going to fight their battles for them. He's going to take them and force them to fight their battles. He's going to take their living to support his standing army and all of his servants and all of his pet projects and enrich all of his friends. This is how it happens when a nation turns away from our God, our Creator, from him being king over them. And the Lord said to Samuel, hearken unto their voice, and make them a king. And Samuel said unto the men of Israel, go ye every man unto his city. Now there was a man in Benjamin, a man of Benjamin, we're in Samuel chapter 9 verse 1, whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Becharath, the son of Aphiah, a Benjamite, a mighty man of power. And he had a son, whose name was Saul, a choice young man, and a goodly. And there was not among the children of Israel a godlier person than he. From his shoulders and upwards, he was higher than any of the other people. Tall, handsome. Here was what the people wanted. Someone who looked good, sounded good. Continuing, verse 3, chapter 9. And the asses of Kish Saul's father, were lost. And Kish said to Saul his son, Take now one of the servants with thee, and arise, and go seek the asses. And he passed through Mount Ephraim, and passed through the land of Shalisha, but they found them not. Then they passed through the land of Shalim, and there they were not. And he passed through the land of the Benjamites, but found them not. And when they were come to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant that was with him, Come, let us return, lest my father leave carrying for the asses, and take thought for us. And he said to him, Behold, now there is in the city a man of God, and he is an honorable man. All that he saith cometh surely to pass. Now let us go thither. Peradventure he can show us our way that we should go. Then Saul said to his servant, But behold, if we go, what shall we bring the man? For the bread is spent in our vessels, and there is not a present to bring the man of God. What have we? And the servant answered Saul again, and said, Behold, we have here at hand the 4th part of a shekel of silver, a quarter shekel. That will I give the man of God to tell us our way. Formerly in Israel, when a man went out to inquire of God, thus he spoke, Come, let us go to the seer, for that is now called a prophet, was formerly called a seer. And that's a parenthetical note here in 1 Samuel, for whatever purpose. Then said Saul to his servant, Well said, come, let us go. So they went unto the city where the man of God was. And as they went up to the hill to the city, they found young maidens going out to draw water, and said to them, Is the seer here? And they answered him and said, He is. Behold, he is before you. Make haste now, for he came today to the city, for there is a sacrifice of the people today in the high place. As soon as you come into the city, you shall straightway find him before he go up to the place to eat. For the people will not eat until he come, because he doth bless the sacrifice. And afterwards they eat that he bidden. Now therefore get you up, for about this time you shall find him. And they went up into the city. And when they were come into the city, behold, Samuel came out against them for to go up to the high place. For now the Lord told Samuel in his ear a day before Saul came, saying, Tomorrow about this time I will send thee a man out of the land of Benjamin, and thou shalt anoint him to be captain over my people Israel, that he may save my people out of the hand of the Philistines. For I have looked upon my people, because their cry is come unto me. And when Samuel saw Saul, Yahuwah said to him, Behold, the man whom I spoke to thee of, this same shall reign over my people. Then Saul drew near to Samuel in the gate, and said, Tell me, I pray thee, where the seer's house is. And Samuel answered Saul, and said, I am the seer. Go up before me into the high place, for you shall eat with me today, and tomorrow I will let thee go, and will tell thee all that is in thine heart. And as for thine asses that were lost 3 days ago, set not thy mind on them, for they are found, and on whom all the desire of Israel. Is it not on thee and on all thy father's house? And Saul answered and said, Am not I a Benjamite, of the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and my family the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Wherefore then speakest thou so to me? And Samuel took Saul and his servant, and brought them to the parlor, and made them sit in the chiefest place among them that were bidden, which were about 30 persons. And Samuel said to the cook, Bring the portion which I gave thee, of which I said unto thee, Set it by thee. And the cook took up the shoulder, and that which was upon it, and set it before Saul. And Samuel said, Behold, that which is left set before thee, and eat. And for unto this time hath it been kept for thee, since I said, I have invited thy people. So Saul did eat with Samuel that day. And when they were come down from the high place into the city, Samuel communed with Saul upon the top of the house. And they arose early, and it came to pass about the spring of the day that Samuel called Saul to the top of the house, saying, Up, that I may send thee away. And Saul rose, and they went out, both of them, he and Samuel, abroad. And as they were going down to the end of the city, Samuel said to Saul, Bid thy servant to pass on before us. And he passed on. But stand thou still a while, that I may show thee the word of God. Chapter 10, verse 1. Then Samuel took a vial of oil, and poured it upon his head, and kissed him, and said, Is it not because the Lord hath anointed thee to be captain over his inheritance? When thou art departed from me today, then thou shalt find 2 men by Rachel's sepulchre in the border of Benjamin at Zizah, and they will say unto thee, The asses which thou wentest to seek are found, and lo, thy father hath left the care of the asses, and sorroweth for you, saying, What shall I do for my son? So, of course, he sent his son out to look for the asses, and now his son hasn't come back, but he found the asses that they were looking for. Continuing, Then shalt thou go forward from thence, and thou shalt come to the plain of Tabor, and there shall meet 3 men, going up to God to Bethel, one carrying 3 kids, and another carrying 3 loaves of bread, and another carrying a bottle of wine. And they will salute thee, and give thee 2 loaves of bread, which thou shalt receive of their hands. After that thou shalt come to the hill of God, where is the garrison of the Philistines. And it shall come to pass, when thou art thither to the city, thou shalt meet a company of prophets coming down from the high place, with a psaltery, and a tabret, and a pipe, and a harp before them, and they shall prophesy. And the Spirit of the Lord will come upon thee, and thou shalt prophesy with them, and shall be turned into another man. And let it be, when these signs come unto thee, that thou do as occasion serve thee, for God is with thee. And thou shalt go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down unto thee to offer burnt offering, and to sacrifice sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days thou shalt tarry, till I come to thee, and show thee what thou shalt do. And it was so, that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass that day. And when they came thither to the hill, behold, a company of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God came upon him, and he prophesied among them. And it came to pass, when all that knew him formerly saw that, behold, he prophesied among the prophets, then the people said one to another, What is this that is come unto the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? And one of the same place answered and said, But who is their father? Therefore it became a proverb, Is Saul also among the prophets? And when he had made an end of prophesying, he came to the high place. And Saul's uncle said unto him, and to his servant, Whither went ye? And he said, To seek the asses. And when we saw that they were nowhere, we came to Samuel. And Saul's uncle said, Tell me, I pray thee, what Samuel said unto you. And Saul said to his uncle, He told us plainly that the asses were found, but the matter of the kingdom whereof Samuel spoke he told him not. And Samuel called the people together unto the Lord to Mizpah, and said unto the children of Israel, Thus saith the Lord, God of Israel, I have brought up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, out of the hands of all kingdoms, and of them that oppressed you, and you have this day rejected your God, whom himself saved you out of all your adversities and your tribulations, and you have said unto him, Nay, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourself before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. And when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. When he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was taken. And Paul, the son of Kish, was taken. And when they sought him, he could not be found. Therefore they inquired of the Lord further if the man should yet come thither. And the Lord answered, Behold, he hath hid himself among the stuff. And we're going to have to pick up there after a break here. You're listening to Cross the Border. Do visit my website, crosstheborder.org, and be sure to email me. I would like to hear from you. Stay tuned for the news. We'll be back.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to Cross the Border. That's the name of this program. I'm Nicholas, and we are going through 1 Samuel. And last time, where we left off was Samuel chapter 10, and about verse 22. Samuel had just rehearsed to the people how they had rejected God and asked him for a king, so he called all of the tribes to come near, in the tribe of Benjamin. And they sought out, they were seeking for Saul, and they inquired of the Lord further if the man should yet come thither. And the Lord answered, Behold, he hath hid himself among the stuff. So Saul, for whatever reason, is hiding. And they ran and fetched him thence. And he stood among the people. He was higher than any of the people from his shoulders upwards. So he stood head above the people. And Samuel said to all the people, See ye him whom the Lord hath chosen, that there is none like him among all the people, And all the people shouted and said, God save the king. That's that cry that has rang out through the ages. God save the king. God save the king. Then Samuel told the people the manner of the kingdom, and wrote it in a book, and laid it up before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. And Samuel also went home to Gibeah, and there went with him a band of men, whose hearts God had touched. But the children of Belial said, How shall this man save us? And they despised him, and brought him no presents, but he held his peace. And Nahash the Ammonite came up, and encamped against Jabesh Gilead. And all the men of Jabesh said unto Nahash, Make a covenant with us, and we will serve thee. And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, On this condition will I make a covenant with you, that I may thrust out all of your right eyes, and lay it for a reproach upon all Israel. And the elders of Jabesh said unto him, Give us 7 days, that we may send messengers into all the coasts of Israel. Then, if there be no man to save us, we will come out to thee. And I kind of wonder what's going on here. They're talking about thrusting out their eyes. And I'm going to look to our good friend here, Henry, and see what he has to say about this. When in doubt, turn to Henry, right? Matthew Henry, that is, and his commentaries. The Ammonites were bad neighbors to those tribes of Israel that lay next to them, though descendant from just Lot, and for that reason dealt civilly by Israel. Jephthah in his time had humbled them, but now the sin of Israel had put them into a capacity to make head again and avenge that quarrel. The city of Jabesh Gilead had been some ages ago destroyed by Israel's sword of justice for not appearing against the wickedness of Gibeah, but now being replenished again, probably by the posterity of those that then escaped by the sword. It is in danger of being destroyed by the Ammonites, as if some bad fate attended the place. Nahash, king of Ammon, laid siege to it. Now hear, the besieged beat a parley, make a covenant with us, and we will surrender upon terms and serve thee. They had lost the virtue of Israelites, else they would not have thus lost the valor of Israelites, nor tamely yielded to serve an Ammonite without one bold struggle for themselves. Had they not broken their covenant with God and forsaken his service, they needed not thus to have courted a covenant with a Gentile nation and offered themselves to serve them. The besiegers offer them base and barbarous conditions. They will spare their lives and take them to be their servants upon the condition that they will put out their right eyes. The Gileadites were content to part with their liberty and estates for the ransom of their blood, and had the Ammonites taken them at their word, a matter would have been so settled immediately, and Gileadites would not have set out for relief. But their abject concessions to make the Ammonites more insolent in their demands, and they cannot be content to have them for servants, but one, they must torment them and put them to pain, exquisite pain, for so the thrusting out of an eye would do. They must disable them from war and render them incapable, though not of labor. That would have been a loss to their lords. So putting out one eye would make them incapable of warring, but not incapable of being put to labor. Continuing, yet of bearing arms, for in those times they fought with shields in their left hands, which covered their left eye, so that the soldier without his right eye was in effect blind. They must put a reproach upon all Israel as weak and cowardly, that would suffer the inhabitants of one of their chief cities to be thus miserably used, and not offer to rescue them. Well, this is quite a tale here. And besieged desire and obtained 7 days' time to consider of the proposal. If Nahash had not granted them this respite, we may suppose the horror of the proposal would have made them desperate, and they would rather have died with their swords in their hands than have surrendered to such merciless enemies. Therefore Nahash, not imagining it possible that, in so short a time, they should have relief, and being very secure of the advantages he thought he had against them, in a bravado gave them 7 days, that the reproach upon Israel for not rescuing them might be the greater, and his triumphs the more illustrious. But there was a providence in it, that his security might be an infatuation and ruin. So, with a little more understanding, we'll continue here. The messenger of Gibeah then came the messengers of Gibeah to Saul, and told the tidings in the ears of the people, and all the people lifted up their voices and wept. And behold, Saul came after he heard out of the field, and Saul said, What aileth the people that they should weep? And they told him in the tidings of the men of Jabesh. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard those things, and his anger was kindled greatly. And he took a yoke of oxen, and hewed them in pieces, and sent them throughout all the coast of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, Whosoever cometh not forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall it be done unto his oxen. And the fear of the Lord fell upon all the people, and they came out with one consent. And when he numbered them in Bezek, the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And they said unto the messengers that came, Thus shall you say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, Tomorrow, by that time the sun be hot, you shall have help. And the messengers came and showed to the men of Jabesh, and they were glad. Therefore the men of Jabesh said, Tomorrow we will come out unto you, and you shall do with us all that seemeth good unto you. And it was on the morrow that Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the hosts in the morning watch, and slew the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And it came to pass that they which remained were scattered, so that 2 of them were not left together. And the people said to Samuel, Who is he that said, Shall Saul reign over us? Bring us the men, that we may put them to death. And Saul said, There shall not a man be put to death this day, for today the Lord hath wrought salvation in Israel. Then said Samuel to the people, Come, let us go to Gilgal, and renew the kingdom there. And all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal, and there they sacrificed sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord, and there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. Chapter 12 and verse 1. And Samuel said to all Israel, Behold, I have hearkened unto your words, unto your voice in all that you said unto me, and have made a king over you. And now behold, the king walketh before you, and I am old and gray-headed. And behold, my sons are with you, and I have walked before you from my childhood unto this day. Behold, here I am, witness against me before the Lord and before his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Or whose ass have I taken? Or whom have I defrauded? Whom have I oppressed? Or of whose hand have I received any bribe to blind mine eyes therewith? And I will restore it you. And they said, Thou hast not defrauded us, nor oppressed us, neither hast thou taken aught of any man's hand. And he said unto them, The Lord is witness against you, and his anointed is witness this day, that you have not found aught in my hand. And they answered, He is witness. And Saul said to the people, It is the Lord that advanced Moses and Aaron, and that brought your fathers up out of the land of Egypt. Now therefore stand still, that I may reason with you before the Lord of all the righteous acts of the Lord, which he did to you and your fathers. when Jacob was come into Egypt, and your fathers cried unto the Lord. Then the Lord sent Moses and Aaron, which brought forth your fathers out of Egypt, and made us dwell in this place. And when they forgot Yahuwah their God, and sold them into the hand of Sisera, captain of the host of Hazor, and into the hand of the Philistines, and into the hand of the king of Moab, and they fought against him. And then they cried unto the Lord, and said, We have sinned, because we have forsaken the Lord, and have served Baalim and Ashtaroth. But now deliver us out of the hand of our enemies, and we will serve thee. And the Lord sent Jerubbaal, and Bedan, and Jephthah, and Samuel, and delivered you out of the hand of your enemies on every side, and you dwelled safe. And when you saw that Nahash, the king of the children of Ammon, came against you, you said, Nay, but a king shall reign over us, than the Lord your God, when the Lord your God was your king. Now there behold the king whom you have chosen, and whom you have desired. And behold, the Lord hath set a king over you. If you will fear the Lord, and serve him, and obey his voice, and not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall both ye and also the king that reigneth over you continue following the Lord your God. But if you will not obey the voice of Yahuwah, but rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall the hand of the Lord be against you, as it was against your fathers. Now therefore stand and see this great thing which the Lord will do before your eyes. Is it not wheat harvest today? I will call unto the Lord, and he shall send thunder and rain, that you may perceive and see that your wickedness is great, which you have done in the sight of the Lord, in asking you a king. So Samuel called unto Yahuwah, and he sent thunder and rain that day, and all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. And all the people said to Samuel, Pray for thy servants unto the Lord thy God, that we die not, for we have added unto all of our sins this evil to ask us a king. And Samuel said to the people, Fear not, you have undone all this wickedness, yet turn not aside from following the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. And turn ye not aside, for then you should go after vain things which cannot profit nor deliver, for they are vain. For the Lord will not forsake his people for his great name's sake, because it has pleased Yahuwah to make you his people. Moreover, as for me, God forbid that I should sin against the Lord in ceasing to pray for you, but I will teach you the good and the right way. Only fear Yahuwah, and serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider how great things he hath done for you. But if you shall still do wickedly, you shall be consumed, both ye and your king. Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, he chose him 3,000 men of Israel, whereof 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash, in the Mount Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin, and the rest of the people sent every man to his tent. And Jonathan smote the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba, and the Philistines heard of it, and Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, Let the Hebrews hear. And all Israel heard say that Saul had smitten a garrison of the Philistines, and that Israel also had in abomination with the Philistines. And the people were called together after Saul to Gilgal. And the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots, and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the sea shore in multitude. And they came up and pitched at Michmash, eastward from Beth-aven. And the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were distressed. Then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks, and in high places, and in pits. And some of the Hebrews went over Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him, trembling. And he tarried 7 days, according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. And Saul said, Bring thither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And it came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, What hast thou done? And Saul said, Because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. Therefore said I, The Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. And Samuel said to Saul, Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which God the Lord commanded. Our good friend Henry here. Saul appears here a very silly prince, infatuated in his counsels, invaded by his neighbors, deserted by his soldiers, disordered in his own spirit, and sacrificing in confusion, chidden by Samuel, rejected of God from being king. The people appear here a very miserable people, disheartened and dispersed, diminished, plundered, disarmed. This they got, casting off God's government and making themselves like the nations. All their glory departed from them. So we see the state of the nation, much like the nation that I'm in today. The glory is departing, people. Sorry to say it, but the glory has departed. The nation is in disarray, and the people worship a man as God to take the place of God. God will not license their sin, so they have chosen them a God that will license their sin. The times have changed. Things have changed. We have tanks instead of chariots, Humvees instead of horses, but still we have men, and the heart of man hasn't changed a bit. Things have changed. Yes, we have computers and telephones and cell phones, and we all think we're wiser and more modern because of all these things that we have. But man has not changed. These things have only corrupted man into thinking somehow he is better because he seems to have better things. But they are all still things, and fire is still fire, whether the flame is in a fireplace or upon a candle or it comes from a light bulb. It is God who has made the fire and truly made all of these things. We'll continue after we get back from the break. You're listening to Cross the Border.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Cross the Border. We're continuing here, reading a few words from Henry about the situation with Saul and his fall from the height that he had been elevated to in being the king over Israel. Henry says, this order was broke. Let me jump back here. Let's see. Perhaps that order, though inserted there, was given him afterwards, or was given him as a general rule to be observed in every public congress at Gilgal, or, as is most probable, though not mentioned again, was lately repeated with reference to this particular occasion, for it is plain that Saul himself understood it as obliging him from God now to stay till Samuel came, else he would not have made so many excuses as he did for not staying. This order Saul broke, he said, till the 7th day, yet had not patience to wait to the end of the 7th day. Perhaps he began to reproach Samuel as false to his word, careless of his country, and disrespectful of his prince, and thought it more fit that Samuel should wait for him than that he should wait for Samuel. He presumed to offer a sacrifice without Samuel, and nothing appears to the contrary but that he did it himself, though he was neither priest nor prophet, as if, because he was king, he might do anything, a piece of presumption which King Uzziah paid dearly for. And he determined to engage the Philistines without Samuel's directions, though he had promised to show him what he should do. So self-sufficient Saul was that he thought it not worthwhile to stay for a prophet of the Lord, either to pray for him or to advise him. This was Saul's offense, and that which aggravated it was, for aught that appears he did not send any messengers to Samuel to know his mind, to represent the case to him. So let's continue. Jump back here. And Samuel said to Saul, Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. Yes, instead of the son of David, it would have been the son of Saul. How about that? But now the kingdom shall not continue. Yahuwah hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. And Samuel arose and got him up from Gilgal to Gibeah of Benjamin, and Saul numbered the people that were present with him, about 600 men. And Saul and Jonathan his son and the people that were present with them abode in Gibeah of Benjamin. But the Philistines encamped at Michmash, and the spoilers came out to the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company turned unto the way that leadeth to Ophrah, unto the land of Shaul, and another company turned to the way of Beth-horon, and another company turned to the way of the border that looketh to the valley of Zeboim, toward the wilderness. Now there was no blacksmith found throughout all the land of Israel, For the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make them swords or spears. So basically, here's what happened, is the Philistines, they're now governing Israel, and they have disarmed the people and taken away their means of arming themselves. But all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen every man his share, and his coulter, and his axe, and his mattock. So they needed their tools to work, but no swords were allowed. The Philistines had totally disarmed the Israelites, so that they had to go to the Philistines to have their implements sharpened. Yet they had a file for the mattocks, and for the coulters, and for the forks, and for the axes to sharpen the goads. So it came to pass in the day of battle that there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people that were with Saul and Jonathan, but with Saul and Jonathan his son was there found. And the garrison of the Philistines went out to the passage of Michmash, chapter 14, verse 1. Now it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said unto the young man that bore his armor, Come, let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he told not his father. And Saul tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeah under the pomegranate tree, which is in Migron, and the people that were with him were about 600 men. And Ahiah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, sent the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh, wearing an ephod, and the people knew not that Jonathan was gone. And between the passages by which Jonathan sought to go over into the Philistines' garrison was a sharp rock on the one side, and a sharp rock on the other side. And the name of one was Bozez, and the name of the other was Seneh. The forefront of the one was situated northward over against Michmash, and the other southward over against Gibeah. And Jonathan said to the young man that bore his armor, Come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by a few. In other words, Jonathan saying, it doesn't matter how many we have, if the Lord is with us, we will prevail, basically. And his armor-bearer said unto him, Do all that is in thine heart, turn thee, behold, I am with thee according to thy heart. Then said Jonathan, Behold, we will pass over unto these men, and we will discover ourselves unto them. If they say thus to us, Tarry till we come to you, then we will stand still in our place, and will not go up unto them. But if they say thus, Come up unto us, then we will go up, for the Lord hath delivered them into our hand, and this shall be a sign unto us. And both of them discovered themselves unto the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, Behold, the Hebrews come forth out of the holes where they had hid themselves. And the men of the garrison answered Jonathan and his armor-bearer, and said, Come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Jonathan said unto his armor-bearer, Come up after me, for the Lord hath delivered them into the hand of Israel. And Jonathan climbed up upon his hands and upon his feet, and his armor-bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer slew after him. And that first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor-bearer made was about 20 men, within, as it were, half-acre land, which a yoke of oxen might plow. And there was trembling in the hosts in the field, and among all the people, the garrison and the spoilers, and they trembled, and the earth quaked. So it was a very great trembling. And the watchmen of Saul and Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away, and they went on beating down one another. And Then said Saul unto the people that were with him, Number now, and see who is gone from us. And when they had numbered, behold, Jonathan and his armor-bearer were not there. And Saul said to Ahiah, Bring hither the ark of God, for the ark of God was at that time with the children of Israel. And it came to pass, while Saul talked unto the priests, that the noise that was in the host of the Philistines went on and increased. And Saul said to the priests, Withdraw thine hand. And Saul and all the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to the battle, and behold, every man's sword was against his fellow, and there was a very great discomfiture. Moreover, the Hebrews that were with the Philistines before that time, which went up with them into the camp from the country round about, even they also turned to be with the Israelites that were with Saul and Jonathan. Likewise all the men of Israel, which had hid themselves in the Mount Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, even they also followed hard after them in the battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over unto Beth-aven. And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had adjured the people, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food until even, that I may be avenged of my enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. And all they of the land came to a wood, and there was honey upon the ground. And when the people were come to the wood, behold, the honey dropped, but no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. But Jonathan heard not, when his father charged the people with the oath. Wherefore he put forth the end of the rod that was in his hand, dipped it in the honeycomb, and he put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. Then answered one of the people and said, Thy father straitly charged the people with an oath, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. And, I think the issue here is Saul speaking presumptuously. These men, fighting a battle, having no food, and not allowing the people to eat, and the people are faint. And of course, Jonathan, not hearing the curse, he eats honey. So that's the situation we're in here. Then said Jonathan, My father has troubled the land. See, I pray you, how mine eyes have been enlightened, because I tasted a little of this honey. How much more if haply the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies which they found, for had there not been now a much greater slaughter among the Philistines? And they smote the Philistines that day from Michmash to Ajalon, and the people were very faint. And the people flew upon the spoil, and took the sheep and oxen and calves, and slew them on the ground, and the people did eat them with the blood. Then they told Saul, saying, Behold, the people sin against the Lord, in that they eat with the blood. And he said, You have transgressed, roll a great stone unto me this day. And Saul said, Disperse yourselves among the people, and say unto them, Bring me hither every man his ox, and every man his sheep, and slay them here, and eat, and sin not against the Lord, eating with the blood. And all the people brought every man his ox with him that night, and slew them there. And Saul built an altar unto the Lord, and the same was the first altar that he built unto the Lord. And Saul said, Let us go down after the Philistines by night, and spoil them until the morning light, and let us not leave a man of them. And they said, Do whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Then said the priests, Let us draw hither unto God. And Saul asked counsel of God, Shall I go down into the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into the hand of Israel? But he answered him not that day. And Saul said, Draw ye near hither all the chief of the people to know and see wherein you sin. The sin hath been this day. For as the Lord liveth, which saveth Israel, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall surely die. But there was not a man among all the people that answered him. Then said he unto all Israel, But ye on one side, as I and Jonathan my son will be on the other side. And the people said unto Saul, Do what seemeth good to you, unto thee. Therefore Saul said unto the Lord God of Israel, give a perfect lot. And Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. And Saul said, cast lots between me and Jonathan, my son. And Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, tell me what thou hast done. And Jonathan told him and said, I did but taste a little honey with the end of the rod that was in mine hand, and lo, I must die. And Saul answered, God do so, and more also, for thou shalt surely die, Jonathan. And the people said to Saul, shall Jonathan die, who has wrought this great salvation in Israel? God forbid. As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he hath wrought with God this day. So the people rescued Jonathan, that he died not. So what's going on here? Saul made his own commandment that the people not eat that day. It wasn't the law of God. It wasn't the command of God, but he spoke presumptuously as a king, and he made rules, extra rules, not the law of God, the law of the king. And he made that law, and his own son got snared in that law. And now, just like, to use another illustration, there was a word of another king who gave his word, and it caused the death of another prophet, the one John the Baptist. And this king should have repented of the word he gave, of the law he made against the law of God, but he would not repent. But for his word's sake, for his own law's sake, he put to death that prophet. And we have here Saul doing the same thing, raising himself up, raising his own commandment up to be equal to the commandment of God. And that's how I see it. That's what I'm getting out of this. So in between all of those these and thous, that's the situation that we have here. And so Saul, willing to put his own son to death for his own word's sake, for his own commandment's sake, even though Jonathan is more righteous than his own father. And we see that the Lord himself, Yahuwah, demonstrates that to the people by giving Jonathan a great victory that day and delivering Israel out of the hand of their enemies, and Saul willing to put his own son to death because of his own commandment in the flesh. So we continue here. And the people said to Saul, shall Jonathan die, who has wrought this great salvation in Israel? God forbid. As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he hath wrought with God this day. So the people rescued Jonathan, that he died not. So we have the people standing against their king because of his unjust decree and willingness to even have his own son killed because of his unjust words, not wanting to go back on his word. Then Saul went up from following the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. So Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, against the children of Ammon, against Edom, and against the kings of Zobah, against the Philistines, and whithersoever he turned himself, he vexed them. And he gathered a host and smote the Amalekites and delivered Israel out of the hands of them that spoiled them. Now the sons of Saul were Jonathan, Ishui, and Malchishua, and the names of his two daughters. These were the names of the firstborn, Merab, and the name of the younger was Michal. And the name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz, and the name of the captain of his host was Abner, the son of Ner, Saul's uncle. And Kish was the father of Saul, and Ner, the father of Abner, was the son of Abiel. And there was sore war against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he took him unto him. So Saul always had an eye out to draft anyone he would for his army, for his standing army. Chapter 15, verse 1. Samuel also said to Saul, Yahuwah sent me to anoint thee king to be over the people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel. Now he laid wait for him in the way, and he came, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass, utterly to destroy the Amalekites. And you know, this is where all of the naysayers and the Bible haters, the critics of the God of the Old Testament come in and, oh, look at what God slays children and infants and women and everyone. Who were the Amalekites? What were they practicing in their cities? Well, it's coming to a city near you. The Amalekites are among us, and they want to teach your children to be good little sodomites. That's right. They can't have children themselves, so they need to recruit. And they need your sons and your daughters. And now they're teaching them that it's okay to have two daddies or two mommies. What were the Amalekites doing? Soon enough, yes, they will have their way in every way. The way things are going, that's the way it's becoming. And God is not to be held, our Creator is not to be held to the same standard as men. He cannot murder. He could slay an entire nation and not be a murderer. That's right. He can slay men, women, and children by whatever means he finds necessary or whatever means he desires. He had a tsunami here. A tsunami, and many people like to say that men created that tsunami by whatever, there's all the conspiracy theories out there, but we've had our natural disasters throughout histories where even hundreds of thousands have perished. Men, women, children, infants, sucklings, everyone perished. The good with the bad. Yet our God is not a murderer. And perhaps we're going to pick up here next time, because this could get to be quite an extensive topic for me to discuss. You're listening to Cross the Border, and hopefully you'll join me next time as we continue this topic. Remember, as always, in everything you say and in everything you do, bless His holy name. Hallelujah.